So good morning, Narad, again.
Good morning.
And I suppose we shall continue walking down your lane of reminiscences.
Fine.
So what shall we focus on today?
Well, I got a list of things here, and I guess the first thing I wanted to tell you about was the end of Nolini's our meeting with him when he talked about, we're all mother's body now.
Yes.
So so this is regarding the question in my letter about Oroville.
Mm-hmm.
Is Oroville individually and collectively now strong enough to stand on its own and seek the truth of its being, or is a reconciliation with some group necessary? I don't want to mention names. Regarding the question in my letter, he said, it need not happen like that. And he speaks at length about the necessity for goodwill in Oroville.
Which year was this? Late 70s?
1979, yes,
79.
you're correct. Yeah.
Okay.
He said, it can't be just a superficial goodwill, but a deep, sincere bonne volonté. He repeated this many times in different ways, and then spoke of the destruction of rancor.
Yes.
He said, rancor and hatred eat at the consciousness. It makes a man as low as an animal, no, lower, a worm or an insect. It comes from the lowest part of the being. Then he said, the world is in such a state. And then, quote, this is very interesting, but one has to be a guru to be a leader of a nation, end quote. Then he was quiet for a while, and then he spoke again, referring to goodwill. And he says, I tell you this because it is your birthday, that you have the capacity, end quote. He was silent for a moment and said, quote, no one has the capacity, it is all her. Only one has to see her for a moment. She casts her glance, and it is enough. I then asked him, what about the matrimondia? And he said, do not trouble yourself about it. It will go on. The work means nothing. And that's very interesting, because remember what Mother said? She said, regardless of men, something like that, the divine is going to create Oroville. And we don't matter so much. Mm-hmm. And I guess unless we can open to that.
Yes.
So then Nolini was quiet for a moment. He said, have I given you your card? His secretary gave him a card and 2 blessing packets. And handing the card and 1 blessing packet to me, he said in a joyous, powerful, resonant voice, Bon fête, carrying something in it of the way Mother wished us a happy birthday. I bent down to touch his hand, and he held my head with both of his hands, giving me his blessing. Then he took Mary Helen's hand firmly in his, pressing the blessing packet into it, and held it there for a long time, giving us all the while the most radiant smile. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Paolo Soleri?
No.
Paolo used to come to Oroville and meet with me in the Matrimondia Gardens nursery. He was building a place called Arcosanti. That you've heard of.
Yes.
Where he envisaged a vertical city.
Yes.
And then all the horizontal would be gardens and farms, and it's still going on. I haven't seen him I don't even know if he's here anymore, but those were very interesting discussions, because...
But he was passing by Oroville, or was he settled in Oroville?
No, he was passing by, and he would come regularly, and we would meet.
From Italy or from the States?
I believe he was Italian, but working in, I guess it was Nevada or... I think it was Nevada.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the students from the university would come every summer and work.
Okay.
with him. Did you know Dr. Vishwa?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Lovely,
I'd like to
lovely
hear
man.
a little from you on that too, but this was the most extraordinary experience that I ever had with another person other than Mother Sri Aurobindo Navini Ambasu. He introduced himself to me as Vishwa. Tall, majestic figure with a white beard, pure white hair, brilliant blue eyes that seemed to encompass all the joy of life and smile on all with graciousness and humor. When he spoke, his voice was strong and clear and filled with love. Now this is just outside the ashram gate. And I'm coming to go into the ashram, and he's there, and he says, I am 90 years old, and I have explored all this world. Now I will soon leave this body to continue to visit the higher worlds of beauty. My soul will go on without the body, but I will never forget your soul. Here was a man I had never met before, and he's pouring his love on me and promising this. And towards the end of my stay in the ashram that year, I met him again. I found him in a corner of the ashram, you may remember, always reading the Gita. I went to him and he held my face in his hands and blessed me and said, when you go to America, my soul will accompany you. In the following years, when he was in care, I often went to see him. He was always radiantly happy to see me and would hold my head in his hands and speak kindly about my latest poems in Mother India. And then the most amazing thing was he would always begin speaking to me in French.
Yeah.
And then realizing that I didn't know it, would switch to English. And
He was one of those rare Franco-Pondicherrians who had opened to the light of the Mother. Very, very few people in that community really opened themselves to.
I see.
And he was one of those really extraordinary.
I didn't know that. He was a Pondicherrian.
Franco-Pondicherrian.
Franco-Pondicherrian, I see.
This is why it was even more remarkable. I found this opening, of this incredible. And he kind of reminded me of a mountain. When you looked at him, you kind of, there was such a stability.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, then he went to care, and I would meet him in care. And one evening, Jagrati Shaw and I took him to the Om Choir, which then was in Delafont.
Okay.
We moved around a lot before I built the video room in the school. And he came to me after the Om Choir and very quietly said, divine music. And he said, his soul would always be with me. And somewhere in the depths of my being, I know that he is. And I was blessed to know him, and I'm blessed to hear what you have said, because I didn't know that. Well, I've had interviews with a number of people, and some who knew Ambu very well. I loved him, and he was so wonderful and generous. And there are a couple of photos. This is, I guess, in his late 60s.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. So I said to him, I'd like to photograph your asanas. He said, okay, sure. Yeah. So outside his room, he put all these mats down, and I got my camera, I got my tripod, and he does one asana, and then they get progressively more complicated and more difficult. Yeah. So I'm trying to get exactly the perfect exposure, the sharpness and everything, and I hear this small voice say, could you go a little faster?
There was something of a mischievous elf in his eyes.
Oh, absolutely. But he had tremendous powers of healing. Yeah. And I don't have any experience of that, but people I've interviewed have told me how he healed and never said a word about it.
Yeah.
No. Well, this one's about Louis Allen and the Lake Estate. And you knew Louis?
Oh, yeah. What an amazing...
Could you share something? Because...
Well, when Louis Allen arrived from South Africa, he was, passionate about being always engaged in work. And so he kept telling Mother, give me work. And so Mother had just bought this property in the lake. And she said, well, here is this property, develop it. And so he started working at the lake. And Mother used to go to the lake from time to time for a drive. And so there she was walking, with a few sadhaks from the ashram who she used to take in the car.
Usually Pavitra.
Pavitra used to be driving.
Right, driving.
And so they're walking, on this mainland, which is a little above. And you can see the lake.
You can see it, yeah.
And Louis Allen, is talking aloud, is telling Mother that, I too would love to be like all these sadhaks all the time, close to you, physically close to you. But here I am, I'm so far, please, bring me closer to you.
Yeah.
So Mother stops, turns around and says, Louis, today I'm going to tell you something. That if you are receptive, I am much more present here at the lake, in every leaf, in every flower. You can feel my presence. So don't worry, I am there with you. And after that, Alan never felt the need to go to Pondi to see her, because he used to. And here is a very, very interesting story that happened with a very dear Italian, Dutch friend, but married to an Italian called Tuan, who now works at the ashram handmade paper. So I had taken him and his wife, Lydia, to the lake without telling them really what this place was about. And so we park our scooters and then we start walking, past this office where Mother had signed the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Trust deed, because Pondicherry was still under French dominion at that time.
Yes.
And she had to sign this very important document in India. And so the officials from the Tamil Nadu came to Usteri, to the lake, and that's where Mother signed that very important document creating the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Trust. And so we're walking past, and then I continue with Lydia, and Tuan suddenly stops. And so we continue. And we come back after a while, and there he is, streaming with tears. And then he turns to me and says, what is this place? So then I tell him the story, about the Mother coming here. And he says, my God, I felt her so strongly. I'm sorry, please excuse me, I just couldn't control myself. So it's just unbelievable.
Well, this is my remembrances of Louis, because we became very close friends. Reason being, flowers,
Yes.
matrimonial gardens,
Yeah.
everything. And we would share plants and experiences in growing, challenges of the climate, problems of the laterite soil and everything. And
Did he ever visit Oroville?
I don't recall that he ever
Yeah,
did.
I don't.
No. So he spoke to me of Mother's plan for a school of photography at the lake, where films expressing the higher life and a growth towards the supreme and a new consciousness would be created. So she had told him
Yes.
all of this. And, some found it difficult to work with Louis. But for me, he was larger than life and indefatigable energy. I mean, extraordinary energy. And always encouraging my efforts for the Matrimondia Gardens. Now, I think it was either Louis or Eleanor Montgomery. I think it was Louis who related the following about Dr. Alexander Markey, a Russian American who was so touched by Mother's presence that he promised her $10 million for the School of Photography on his return to the U.S. And the plane crashed over the sea and everyone was lost. Now, this is from Mother, and she says she's looking at the plans for the film studio. She said, it's at the lake. The property belonged to the mission, and at that time its manager was a very good friend of ours, even though he was a missionary. He said that he would arrange for us to have it, and the money didn't come, and then something happened, but finally they got it. And then Mother said, this is only, she said, you see, it wasn't a studio, it was a school of photography, television, and film. And then she says, it is not at all buried.
Yeah.
So then there were talk about ceramics factories and had to remove the pebbles, etc. So one day, Louis gives me this, and it was truly extraordinary. In Mother's hand, if you would read it.
Yes. This is the message that is there in the office.
Yes.
Where Mother signed the document.
Yes.
And this was a message she had given for the Lake Estate.
Right.
It is only in harmonious collaboration that effective work can be done. The important thing is to find the point on which you can all agree. And after this is firmly established, each one must be ready to yield his personal will in order to keep intact this point of harmony. Blessings. And this is a message given on the 29th of March, 1966.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Now we go to, I forgot, the Dalai Lama. We were a pretty ragtag group of people in those early days, as you'll remember, bearded and etc. Some with just a loincloth, I can remember that. So anyway, one day this girl comes running up to the center, what we call the center with the keat roofs, you remember it. And she says, Dalai Lama is coming. Dalai Lama's coming. And he's coming in a car. So we're all in the kitchen. We had that dining area, and then the kitchen in the back. And I start cleaning the tables. Somebody's doing the chairs. Somebody's doing the floor. They're cleaning up in the kitchen. I remember Loretta was cleaning in the kitchen. She doesn't remember this. And she had everything cleaned except one thing, and he arrives. And she just puts a little dirt under the carpet. So he comes, and he's so radiant and laughing, and namaste to all of us, and it was just wonderful. And then he walks straight to the kitchen, lifts up the carpet, and starts laughing like anything. And of course, all of us had to break into laughter. It's similar to what Mother, remember that time with Mother? Yes. So anyway, that was the first visit of the Dalai Lama to Oroville. And we were there. We were only about 12 people there at that time.
This must have been the early 70s.
73.
Yeah.
I
remember. I used to go every Saturday, Sunday, and we would work there and cook at the Matrimandi workers' camp.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was lovely.
Isn't that interesting? And that was in those years.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Shall we go a few more minutes and then break?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because this is a rather extraordinary story. Kelly Catrone, a dear friend of mine, has become very famous in America. She represents many different stars. She does publicity. She's written 2 major books, New York Times bestsellers. She has these fashion shows and everything else, but she's totally given to Mother. And she has Mother's symbol tattooed on her shoulder. And when she walks in the ashram, all the old guys, Kelly, Kelly. So anyway, we've known each other for many, many years. And this is in 2007. Okay, so 10 years ago, gosh. I had to have my gallbladder removed. So she says to me, she says, I will be with you during the entire operation. Now, Kelly's originally from Syracuse, New York, upstate New York. And she has occult power too. I mean, she puts her hand over your hand, and you feel the heat. You've had that experience before. So I'm being prepped for surgery, and the attending nurse there is very kind, compassionate, gentle person. And then I have the operation, and today it's a laparoscopy. It's a very simple operation. It used to be a very complicated operation. But I'm completely out of it. And so they wheel me out of the operating theater, and my friend Vishnu was there. He lived for many years with Dakshina at the Lodi Ashram, Sri Aurobindo Sadhana Pitam in Lodi, California. Still the most active ashram in America today. Devoted to Sri Aurobindo. So I come out, and Vishnu looks at me and says, you are not in your body. I don't know what's going on. I come out of the anesthesia, and then I recognize that I'm back in my body because I'm quoting lines from Savitri. At the head she stands of birth and toil and faith. And then I knew I was back. Yeah. So then the same nurse comes to help me sit up, and I have nausea. And she says, it's all right. They have to get you out of there because it's a operation that's lasts only an hour. And, you don't stay in the hospital or anything. So she tells me to lie back down and let the nausea pass, which I do. And she's so gentle and solicitous that I said, Vishnu, could you ask her name so I might thank her? So she comes back with my shirt and all, and Vishnu asks her name. She says, oh, my name's Kelly, I'm from Syracuse.